Hey guys, it's Lindsay and welcome back to my channel. So today I have a little bit of a special guest. I have my mom here and I made her read some Sarah J. Maas books and we're going to talk about it. So I first made my mom read the, Court of Thorns and Roses series and she started reading it back in, January?
Yes.
So she read the first book of A Court of Thorns and Roses here. And what did you think of it?
It was interesting. I was wondering why that Feyre had to be the one that was doing all of the hunting for the family, who was monitoring the money, and it felt like the other two weren't doing anything to help them survive into that little shack that they were living in.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Like, when I first read it, I had that question too. Like, why is Feyre the only one that is, like, taking responsibility for her family? Like, isn't that what her dad is supposed to be doing? Or, like, aren't her sisters supposed to help? Like, I didn't quite understand that. But I know there's a burning question that a lot of people have when they first read A Court of Thorns and Roses, because you read this and you are like, oh, Tamlin is the greatest thing ever, like, we absolutely love him, and then without, like, thinking about the second or third book, what was your first initial, like, thoughts on Tamlin?
I was conflicted with Tamlin because he came across as really gruff and kind of mean to her at first, and then took her away from her family, right? But then he took care of her family so that they didn't starve and
right,
everything.
But he really just threw money at her family, yes. I think. And so, like, in that part of, like, taking care of her, which is great too, but, like, he didn't really take care of them. He just gave them money.
Well, it gave her peace of mind.
Yeah.
So he did something for her, which makes you think, well, maybe he is a good guy.
Right.
But then as you read through the rest of the books, you find out a little more complexity about his character.
So, was there any side characters that you liked in the first book?
Oh, wow, now I have to remember.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot.
In the first book, I did like Tamlin's friend. Lucien, yes. I'm very bad with names.
You're fine.
I did like Lucien, and I thought that Lucien was trying to be kind of like the mediator for everything. Whenever there was conflict or, issues going on, he was trying to make everybody happy. And so I thought that was kind of...
Was there any, foreshadowing that you saw at the beginning of the book and then, like, find out later in, like, the end of the first book that you're like, oh, that's why that happened? Or...
Not that I saw at the end of the first book, but when you read the second book, you realize there was foreshadowing in the first book. So when you start reading the second book, you realize that Lucien knew that Feyre was his mate when he met her.
Not Lucien. Rhys. You're fine.
God, oh my goodness. Rhys knew that she was his mate when he first met her at the ceremony.
Well, even before then, because he would have, like, and everybody who reads chapter 54 and 55, when he's having his, like, little monologue, he goes into, like, he dreamt about it. Like, when he was under the mountain, he had this feeling of, something, and then he would have dreams about, seeing certain images. Like, he saw images of the dresser. So, like, I think it was also, like, predestined that Feyre was going to become his mate based off of some of the things that they did mention in the second book and kind of what his backstory was on that. But yeah, no, I think that too. Like, even him finding her at the Calanmai festival, like, oh, I've been looking for you everywhere. That was Rhys. So it was like he inadvertently saved her the first time, and then, he's a very complex character, but he would do absolutely anything for Feyre, include give her her space.
Right, he never forced himself to reveal who he was to her. He was letting her figure it out for herself. Giving her, I mean, at first you think, gosh, he's a bad guy because he wants to take her away from Tamlin, but the more the stories go on and the more you see Tamlin's character develop, you realize he wasn't trying to take her away from Tamlin just to take her away. He was trying to give her a means to escape,
right,
so to speak.
Right. So we get introduced to the inner circle in this book as well, or Rhys's inner circle. And what are your thoughts on them, like Cassian and Azriel and Amren and Mor, his cousin?
I am fascinated by Azriel, and I can't wait to read that story.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they give you a little bit of background, but you don't get a lot.
It's very secretive, mysterious, and you don't know what's, like, up with Azriel. And
they have, like, that hook out there, and they're ready to reel you in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm fascinated by him, so I'm ready for that story. And I liked Mor. Mor just spoke her mind, didn't apologize for who she was. She was there and she said it like it was. So sometimes to the extent that Rhys would get frustrated and everything, but I liked that she was unapologetic about who she was. But I think there is something more in the story, and I can't remember his name, the son of the
Eris?
Yes.
Eris.
I think there's more to that story about why he did what he did to her, and I think it saved her life. And she just doesn't know that yet. Like because they give you hints of that throughout all the books, just by things that he says or other people say, that she doesn't really know the whole story.
Right.
She doesn't know the whole things, and so I think there's going to be more to that character development.
Well, I would assume that they're going to put more in Azriel's story a little bit because of how much they kind of foreshadow that he's, like, in love with her, but obviously we know that she has different persuasions towards men or women. So I think they might go into that backstory a little bit, but I don't know how it would be relevant to the story. It's like maybe Mor would get her own little kind of novella, but I don't think Sarah said anything about Mor getting her own story or anything like that. I mean, these characters, there could be so many different spin-off stories, you know? Yeah. But what did you think at the end of this one when Feyre had to pretend to break her mating bond to Rhys and then crawl back to Tamlin?
I guess I didn't understand why she had to do that. I thought maybe there would be another way to handle the situation. Yeah. But then again, she was trying to save her sisters. And Cassian, who was really, really injured. Yeah. And so in the end, her sisters still got turned. And but I guess it showed another side of Tamlin once she crawled back to him as well, which really showed you that even though he loved her, he didn't really respect her as a warrior. Right. And so I think that
she was just a little pretty thing to sit on his throne, you know what I mean?
I mean, when he locked her in the house, I'm like, oh, no. Yeah. Oh, no, that's the wrong thing to do.
I think everybody was not okay with that. But I think out of the three, like, main books, like the trilogy, this one has always been my favorite. I reread it, like, all the time. It's one of my favorites. But what were your thoughts on A Court of Wings and Ruin?
So this was the war, right?
Yeah.
And I liked it in the sense that all the sisters came together to help, fight the war. I liked that Nesta kind of showed her true feelings for Cassian. And then I didn't get it afterwards when she, became the drunk and didn't want to see anybody. That just kind of threw me a little bit, but I liked how the sisters came together, and then how they all worked to save Reese at the end of the book. So, and they all won. They won the war basically.
Yeah.
But my biggest thing was that the sisters came together again. They weren't working against each other. They were working with each other.
Right. So I haven't read this one in a long time. I think the last time I reread it was shortly after it came out. So it's been a few years since I've read this one. But this is where we learn about like Moore's persuasion towards females instead of males, or at least Asriel. I always thought that there might be, him, or like her just saying that to get Asriel off her tail, but also I've heard that Sarah J. Maas was getting criticized because she didn't have any like LGBTQ characters in her books, and so that was her like throwing a bone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, here's a little bit, but like, I don't know. I don't know how like making more LGBTQ like benefited the story in any way. I don't know how it was relevant, and that was just random.
I don't know if it's just a foreshadowing to where you come to terms that Asriel and her are not gonna get together.
Right.
But then, you want to know who's Asriel going to get together
exactly.
with. So.
Like, that's a question, like, after the fourth book, you're like, all right, who is it? Like, But I think this one overall, like, answered a lot of questions between Reese and Feyre. Their reunion at the beginning of the book, like, oh, so cute. I'm like, I couldn't. Like, I reread that scene a few times because I really liked it. But no, this cover does really, like, show, the girls, really hanging with each other, and then the guys, just sticking out. But I don't know. This one is also where like Elaine and Nesta were stuck in the house.
Down in the...
No, I don't remember the house, like on the mountain. I don't remember the house's name.
The one that was talking to Nesta?
But that was in the fourth book.
Oh.
So, sorry. But this one was, because like Elaine was having a really hard time because her fiance or whatever dumped her because she turned fae.
Yes.
And so she's having a really hard time losing her mind over a man. Like, who loses their mind over a man? Sorry. But like, and like her and Lucian trying to pull her out of that. And I don't know, like, it was just weird. Like, there was some like weird side stories, and like I know they were trying to like get us prepared for later books, but I don't know. But
it just makes you wonder if they're ever going to get together.
Yeah, I don't know. But even in this one, and like as a community, like nobody really likes this one. This is just like a stupid novella, and it just goes in the trash. You know what I mean? But like there's some stories in here or some scenes in here that you're like, why the heck did they, like, Asriel gave Elaine a necklace in this, and you're just like, was that necessary? Like, are we supposed to believe that Elaine and Asriel are going to get together?
Well,
like,
it seems like, I don't know, he seems to treat her like she's a precious
gem
or a precious girl.
Yeah.
Not really woman, but he's very protective of her, and you kind of wonder why he feels so protective of her.
Yeah, because like we know he's not her mate because we know Lucian is Elaine's mate, so we're just trying to figure out, with Asriel, like how all is that happening? Even in this, like most of this was obviously Feyre and Reese, but I don't. This novella is not very good, but it is what it is, and. This is perhaps my favorite book out of the whole series, and I think a lot of other people think of it too as one of their favorites, and that is A Court of Silver Flames, because it's Cassian and Nesta, and you kind of figure out why.
You cry.
It does. Definitely at the end. And I will also say, like, this book here is so much spicier than any of Reese and Feyre's scenes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, by far. Like, the fact that they alluded to Nesta wanting a threesome with Asriel and Cassian, you're like, okay, where's that scene? You know what I mean? It's a deleted scene. Sarah has it. She just won't, like, publish it. So anyway, it's just something interesting. But no, I thought this book was very good as far as like Nesta truly like healing herself and not having a man heal her.
I liked that she liked the romance books.
Oh yeah, the smutty
books, and she and the house formed a friendship. I thought that was fun. So all she had to do was kind of ask for something, and it would appear. But I also liked her determination to get out of the house, like going down the stairs, and and once she did it, she went back up. Yeah. She knew she could get out, so she was, she felt like empowered to where she wasn't stuck there anymore. She didn't need somebody to fly her out of the house to get anywhere.
House of the Wind.
Yeah, there you go.
It's going to take me a minute. So, I got
it. So I really liked that, and I liked how she was able to get the other women who worked in the library to come to training so that they could feel self-empowered and not as much of a victim as they have in the past. And then they set the goal with the ribbon and all of that, and I just thought that was really cool how she bonded with girls, which she's always had trouble with. She bonded with Cassian, and it wasn't about winning anymore when they took them and put them in the competition to make it to the I can't remember what the name of the competition was called, but the
Illyrian warriors and stuff, the blood right.
Yeah, blood right. And she was like, saying, I'll hold them off. Yeah. You go and finish this and let them know that women can do this.
Yeah.
And that I thought was a real epiphany for her, because it wasn't all about winning. It was about friendship and helping each other.
I love that that Nesta had friends at the end, where she had Gwen and she had I forget, Ember.
I don't know. I'm so bad with names.
I know. I keep forgetting her name. I always forget her name though. Like, it starts with an E. Emery. You have to look. It took me a minute, but yeah, no. With Emery and with Gwen, I thought that their friendship was very, sisterly formed, right? But they're also warriors or Valkyries, and I just like them.
And is this the book where she helps Feyre?
Yes.
So when she helps Feyre, I don't want to give away.
We've already read the book, it's going to be spoiler warnings everywhere on this thing. So
I was sitting there reading it, and the tears were just running down my face. I was like, they do love each other. They do care about each other, and they've kind of repaired that brokenness between them. Elaine's still a little bit gotta work on that, but that was a very powerful scene. Very powerful scene, I think.
And it really did show that, like, they do love each other, and they're sisters. They're thick and thin. They can argue all the time, but when it comes to life or death, like, they'll do absolutely everything. And let me tell you, when Rhys was on his knees begging Nesta to save Feyre, I lost it. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I don't want to cry again, because, like, every time I think about it, it's like, I'm like, no, this big, huge, powerful man, the most powerful High Lord ever in, the series, and he's literally begging his sister-in-law to save his wife, and it was just like, it was really sad, and I couldn't, and it wasn't, but that was the Court of Thorns and Roses series. Do you have any predictions for, like, what Asriel's story is going to be? Like, who he might end up with?
They kind of hinted at Dawn? Gwen. Sorry.
I'll have to make
I'm
you
bad at names.
I'll have to make you a tree.
I need a cheat sheet for names. No, they kind of hinted at a little bit with Gwen. So there could be something there.
Her from the temple when she got
Right. So they hinted at something there, so that's possible. But then you've got his whole protectiveness over
Elaine.
Elaine. So I really don't know which way she's going to go, or in a completely
it could be somebody
new
we don't
direction.
have any idea.
Yeah.
Like completely someone new. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Or we'll just learn, like, Azrael's backstory and just, figure out what's going to happen with him. But, like, there has to be, something that makes him the way that he is. You know what I mean? He's very mysterious. Nobody really knows about him. Even, like, Feyre, has a hard time. Azrael taught Feyre how to fly. And so, like, but he didn't really talk to her, like, his feelings. Like, his brothers are really the only ones that really know him. And so it's, like, it'll be interesting to see, like, as readers, like, how we're going to convey his story and see what, like, all, like, everything it is to do with him. So I'm really excited, but we know it's not going to come out for at least 2 years is what I've been told. There's a rumor that Crescent City 3 is supposed to come out before Azrael's story comes out. So,
I haven't read Crescent City yet.
Yeah, no, we're getting there. So since she finished A Court of Thorns and Roses, the whole series, or at least what is out currently, took a little break for a little bit, and then she started the Throne of Glass series, and you started that, was it last month, May, or was it April?
Probably end of April.
Okay, so she's only read the first couple, so she did started reading the Throne of Glass. She read this one, and Crown of Midnight. So you're currently on Heir of Fire.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think of these books so far? Or at least this series. Because this is her first series. Like, this right here is her first published book. Mm-hmm. So this is YA. And these two are YA.
Yeah.
It gets a little bit spicier as the books go on. So, like, yeah, I think the first 3 are actually considered YA. And then 4 through 7 is considered new adult or adult.
Yeah. So they are different. Mm-hmm. In these books, Fae are not considered, good, and they can't use their magic, and so it's a little bit of a different perspective from the other books. I mean, in the Court of Thorn and Roses books, the Fae and humans coexisted in separate lands, but they coexisted.
Mm-hmm. Right.
In this book, they don't really coexist. Right. If they know you're Fae, you're probably gonna die. You know what I mean? So, it's a little different from that perspective. It's interesting when you find out what happened. What's her name? Selena.
Well, she's got multiple names, but her name right now
she's introduced as Selena. And you find out what happened to her and why she goes by that name now. But it's interesting with everything that's happened to her and how she, was an assassin, a professional assassin, and she's the king's champion now, that she still forms friendships and bonds with people. Right. And so it makes her a little more human and not just a killing machine.
Yeah.
So I like that aspect of it, even though she's, a killer, she still has a human side. Right. She's able to disconnect herself from both. But I really like it that she doesn't kill the people the king tells her to kill. She tells them to get lost and never come back or they will be dead. So I like she all of a sudden has a conscience and she doesn't want to kill for no reason. Right. So, and she didn't even want to kill the gentleman that was behind the rebellion.
Right. Well, it's interesting to me because she's only read the first 2 books, and so she's on the 3rd book. I've read all of them, so I know what happens. And so, like, even what you think is her backstory is not actually her backstory. Like, you find out more about that, like, later on in the books. But, like, what you know is from the first 2 books and, like, a little bit of the 3rd. So, it'll be really interesting. We might have to do another one of these videos after you finish the series. And kind of, like, do, like, an update to see, like, what, you think of the series after you're done, because it changes a lot from the first two books, because I feel like the first three books are a whole separate series in the last four, because it's just so different. Like when you start reading, it's Selena, and then she changes her name again in the second book to Lillian, and then she changed, like, you know, back to Selena in the third book, and then you find out something else in the third book, her name changes again, so you're like, okay, like what's going on here? So you know, I think you'll really like this series compared to a Court of Thorns and Roses, because it is a little bit different as far as like the content purposes. But I think the magic system is still pretty, like, it's similar. It's obviously not the same, but like I said, I'm really interested to see what they do.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised with these books, because I'm not a person that likes to read fantasy or, you know, anything sci-fi, anything like that. I do like shapeshifter books.
Right.
And so this has a little bit of that and a little bit of the Fae, and so I was pleasantly surprised that I actually liked the books.
Right.
So I would encourage anybody who
hasn't read
them or doesn't like fantasy to at least try it, and make sure that you allow yourself to get through the build-up at the beginning of the book, so that you can get into the more meat and potatoes of it. But they have to give you some backstory.
Right.
And
I
sometimes
think what it is
slow.
too is that these books were so hyped when they came out, and so a lot of people are like, "Nope, these are two overhyped books. I don't want to read them because I'm gonna be disappointed," and blah blah. I think they're very much worth the hype. I think it's you know, worth your time to read. Some people are like, "Oh, I hated the first book. Why am I going to continue on?" I did not like the first book of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I liked it, but I'm like, I you know, wasn't my favorite. I think I gave it 4 stars or something like that, 3 or 4 stars. And then when I read the second book, I'm like, holy cow, like, how have I ever, like, gone without this series before? Why did I wait so long to read the second book? So it's like, it's interesting, you know, what people are willing to read and what they're not willing to read based off of the hype with, you know, with the book community, and how, you know, some books are
there's so much complexity in these. We haven't even talked about the different creatures that she interacted with and, you know, helped her without her even asking. They just knew
to help,
who she was and that she needed help. And the creatures throughout the story are just a pleasant surprise, I think.
I think, like, with the Throne of Glass series too, like, Selena is such a badass that you're just like, oh, this chick can take care of herself. Like, you know, what can't she do? And, you know, the first 2 books are pretty tame compared to what the rest of them are.
I was going to say, because in the third book, the guy that's supposed to train her,
Rowan,
she can't best him.
There's
when she first
there's a whole story with them, but like again, you're in book 3. You'll find out what happens in book 3, but like even then, like, you really don't find out something very specific until book 6, I believe. No, 5, book 5. Because then 6 is Kale's book, and then 7 is the final. So,
So it's a different series. I mean, it's not like reading the same series as Court of Thorns and Roses.
Yeah.
It's a completely different storyline, and although there may be some things like Fae that cross over, it's not anything the same as Court of Thorns and Roses. It's totally different.
It's very different. And I think, like, once you do finish the Throne of Glass series, you'll be pleasantly surprised on how different they are, but how similar they are as well.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, their worlds are a lot different, but their storylines are like that. Let me tell you, that book 7, it was a lovely time. And I say that with, you know, the utmost of sarcasm, because that book 7, it was all over the place, but it was so good you couldn't stop, like, reading it. Once you started, it was like, okay, you gotta, like, finish it. So, like I said, I'm really interested to see what you're gonna think about the rest of the series, and we'll have to do another one of these videos when you're done, so we can see what you thought of the rest of it. But well, that's pretty much the video that we have for today, you guys. If you have any video suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. If you would like to see my mom in future videos, let me know that as well. If you have any other video suggestions, book recommendations, yeah, you know what? Leave some book recommendations in the comments below and maybe I'll get her to read some of them, and we'll do another video like this. So with that being said, you guys, if you haven't liked this video already, please do, or subscribe to my channel if you like this content, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, y'all.